Welcome to the Ensign College Thrive podcast. I'm Bruce Kusch, president of Ensign College, and I'm joined by my co-host Greg Fox, Associate Director of Employer and Alumni Relations at the college. This podcast explores the intersection of leadership, resilience, and faith. In each episode, we delve into the significance of gospel-centered living in our professional and personal journeys and how they strive to grow as capable and trusted disciples. We're thrilled and grateful to welcome today's guest, Peter Vidmar, former American gymnast, two-time Olympic gold medalist, and member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Peter's been a competitive athlete most of his life, but made the time to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics from UCLA. After his competitive gymnastics career, he became a sought-after speaker, sharing principles of success, faith, leadership, and perseverance with audiences all over the world. And despite his incredibly busy schedule, Peter has continued to serve in the church in many different roles, including as a public affairs specialist, a seminary teacher, a bishop, a counselor in a stake presidency, and a mission president in the Australia-Melbourne mission. He also volunteers with various sports and community organizations. Born in Los Angeles, Peter now resides in Heber City, Utah, with his wife Donna Marie Harris Vidmar, where he maintains a very active lifestyle. Peter currently serves as vice president at Northern Trust Financial Services. We are so excited to dive into Peter's faith, discipline, and success journey. Peter, we're just so honored that you would be here with us today to participate in this podcast.
My privilege.
When I knew that we were going to have you as a guest, I was just really thrilled. And I'm reflecting back, remembering where I was in 1984 and watching you and your teammates do just amazing things. Would you just take a minute and just tell us what you've been doing in the last number of years and what you're doing today? And
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I graduated from UCLA a year before the Olympics with a degree in economics, and I was planning to get involved in some sort of financial world, but I wasn't sure. And then I won, and it sent me in a different path, and I spent about 35 years on the corporate lecture circuit, speaking at corporate events and also doing some volunteer work, and then and a little bit of broadcasting, and so I did that for quite a while until my wife and I received a call to serve as mission leaders in the Australia-Melbourne mission in 2016, and that was an incredible experience. We came back. And then I decided, hey, let's give Utah a try. We raised our family in Orange County, California. Our kids were grown and living in different parts of the country, and we thought we'd give it a try. Came up here, and I love living here, and I've enjoyed it a great deal. And then a few years ago, I took on a position in private banking, and so I kind of get to do the things I wanted to work on a little bit when I graduated. And I figured age is just a number, and so why not give it a shot? And I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm also a native Southern Californian, and
I knew there was a quality about you.
Yeah,
so.
Well, we never thought we'd live in Utah either, but we really love it.
No,
we really love it.
Yeah.
And you're also serving. Tell us about your church assignment.
I currently serve on the General Young Men's Advisory Council with some remarkable men, and our focus, our singular focus, is to help young men in the church to grow up to be lifelong disciples of Jesus Christ. And I've just really loved this work. Realistically, we're kind of at the end of that now. Mm-hmm. President Lund will have served for 5 years and come this April. And then, but we're going as hard as we can to train stakes all over the globe on the Children and Youth Program, and really to help young men leaders to help our young men in the church. It's been great.
Yeah, this idea of discipleship is so vital, and helping these young people figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So in a few minutes, I want to ask you a question or two about your mission service in Australia. But
that was a joy.
I think Greg's got a question he wants to ask.
Yes, thank you, President. Peter, great to be with you.
It's great
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions on faith and personal growth.
Sure.
The first one is, can you share a moment when your testimony was strengthened through your experience in gymnastics or during your career?
Well, I think I learned a principle that's a true principle, I believe, that there's a cause and effect between a relationship between efforts and results. Mm-hmm. I had a father that was a great example to me, a coach that was absolutely remarkable, and they taught me the value of hard work. And my coach would never ask me to, if I went off to a training camp, to say, well, I want you to learn some new skills while you're at the camp. He'd just say, when you come back, just tell me you worked harder than everybody there. That's all I want to hear. And so I made that a commitment to try to be as hardworking as I can. Beyond that, though, I've always had a testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I had remarkable examples in my home, and also in my little ward and stake in Southern California. I had remarkable seminary teachers. They helped the Scriptures come alive to me, and helped me to liken the Scriptures unto my own life. And so many of the times I've been at a crossroads where I had to make a decision, I would think about prophets of old. I'd think about figures in the Old Testament and New Testament in the Book of Mormon, and I thought, well, what would they do in this situation? And that helped me a lot. Never perfect, no, but I'm so grateful for that spiritual education that made a big difference. That's why I admire Ensign College so much, for combining the secular education and the spiritual education to try to create the complete person, and it's so important, so important.
Thank you, Peter. Another question is, what role, prayer is an important part of our discipleship. What role has prayer and personal revelation played in your decision making and in sports, during your career in sports and kind of in your current career, but also just throughout your life?
Well, I'll share something that's kind of tender that I really haven't shared much in public, but I knew at a young age the importance of having that desire to serve a full-time mission. I was excelling in gymnastics, and I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to leave my coach, who's trained me for 10 years, with making tremendous sacrifices for me, and a young woman that I'd met at UCLA who I was dating, who I'd baptized, thinking I want to marry her? I did. But I was at a crossroads because I knew the importance of serving the mission, and so I took it to the Lord, and I took it very seriously to Heavenly Father. I had not received my patriarchal blessing. And so I in humble prayer many times shared that I would do whatever the Lord asked me to do in my patriarchal blessing. And I prepared myself for that. I was prepared to walk in the very next day and tell my coach, change of plans. I received a different answer. I won't go into details. It's a sacred experience for me. But I did receive an answer. Part of that blessing was that the Lord would call me and my wife to serve a mission together, and that I would be called to preside at home and abroad. So I didn't even think about those words at all, other than, well, I'll have a chance to serve. I stayed in gymnastics. I baptized my wife. We were sealed in the Los Angeles temple. I had the career that I did in gymnastics, and life went on. And then came the call much later in life to serve as a mission president. And I was reviewing my blessing one day prior to my assignment, and I figured I'm going to serve in the United States. I don't speak a foreign language. I didn't serve a foreign mission, and I'm happy to serve wherever, but I'm sure I'll serve in the United States. And in casual conversation, the brethren that met with me and talked to me just said, well, you'll serve in the United States because you don't have a language skill. But then I was reading my blessing. It said I'd be called to preside abroad. And I thought, well, I've done nothing abroad in my life, in church service. I'm going to go on a foreign mission. Kept it to myself, and then we opened up the letter, and we were assigned to lead in Melbourne, Australia. And I just marvel at how the Lord is in the details of our lives. President Eyring shared that with me and my wife in all seriousness when he called and extended the call to serve in the mission. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to know that my Heavenly Father knows me and loves me. And because I know that about me, I know that He knows and loves every single one of His children. And I feel like I can share that testimony with confidence to my missionaries and to those that I meet and to young people now, to say that, life is full of challenges, but the Lord knows who we are. And sometimes the blessings don't come in the manner in which you want or the timing that we seek, but they come. The blessings do come, and I have a testimony of that.
Remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's always a surprise. Yes. Sometimes, isn't it? The things that the Lord has in store that we never dreamed about.
That's never ending.
Yeah.
Never ending.
Yeah. So as I was listening to you, I thought of another question. with your permission,
Fantastic. Absolutely,
Brother Fox,
President. Yes.
that I'd like to ask, and then I would like to talk about your mission for a minute. But with any skill that you're trying to develop, and particularly a skill at the level that you were developing skills, doing some very difficult things that I could never imagine being able to do. I was never even tried to do gymnastics during my time in the 7th or 8th or 9th grade.
You're a smart person.
But you had to become very accustomed to not having things turn out the way that you wanted them to.
Correct.
And so the question I wanted to ask was, what did you learn about doing, trying, learning? Maybe not. I don't want to necessarily use the word failing. Maybe it is failing.
I can use it.
But then trying again until you get to the point where you master it, and you know that I can get on that pommel horse, or I can get on the rings or the parallel bars or whatever they are, and I know that I can nail it.
Well, I'll give you one example that describes that in full. In the World Gymnastics Championships in 1983, about 6 or 7 months prior to the '84 Olympic Games, going into the horizontal bar finals, I was in second place, ahead of all of the Russian and Chinese gymnasts. It was my chance to be a world champion, which up to that point I had not been. And I had a skill that I developed, a combination of skills, these release moves where we let go of the bar and flip and grab the bar again. I won't go into detail on it, but it was kind of my trademark. And I made it successfully in the preliminary round of competition. I got a great score going into the finals. And in the warm-ups prior to the finals, it was off. I couldn't do it successfully. And I started to panic a little bit. Looked at my coach and said, "Coach, you got to help me. I can't do this skill right. What is wrong here?" And we're trying to scramble around a bit. And finally, I just said, "You know what? I have to do this skill." And so I focused in on what I had to do. The guy that was in first place made a mistake. And so all I have to do is make my routine successfully. I'll be the world horizontal bar champion. Kind of a neat thing. Yes. And I signaled the judge, got up there. I went for that skill. The first half of it went perfectly. Caught the bar, did the next flip, came around to catch the bar, and the bar was not there. And I dropped about 10 feet to my stomach. I hit the mat. I got back up, finished the routine. I think I placed something like 8th, which is great. 8th in the world, but there were only 8 people in the competition. So I remember walking back from that arena to the hotel alone because no one wanted to talk to me. I was devastated. And I remember saying, I will never make that mistake again. I've got to stop taking that skill for granted. I trained that skill like all the other 150 skills I had to develop in my sport. I didn't give it the attention it needed. So for the next 6 months, at the end of almost every workout, I'd spend longer time on the horizontal bar working on that skill. Jump ahead to the Olympic Games now in July of 1984, and that was one of the events in which I scored a perfect 10. So, and if it wasn't for that mistake, I may not have mastered it to the level I needed to perform it at the Olympic Games. And I could have fallen off the bar at the Olympic Games and not had success there. So I'm grateful for my failures. I think as we all look back, as uncomfortable as it is, we learn almost a lot more from our failures than we do from our successes. It's where we make mistakes that we say, you know what, I've got to fix something. And so we spend the time to fix it, and then things tend to work out when we put the time in that we really needed, that maybe we didn't realize we needed until after we've had that setback.
Yeah, but it's iterative, right?
Yes.
I mean, you try, you do, you learn, you adjust.
Yeah, and that's a microcosm of the whole 12-year experience as a gymnast. You know, you're falling off, you're getting up, you're falling off, you're getting up, and pretty soon you learn to do it right because you're tired of falling off.
Yeah.
And next thing, it's like a little child learning to ride a bike. They fall, they get up, they fall, they get up. Pretty soon they got it, and that's how it is for most of the skills I learned in gymnastics.
Sure.
Even.
And I'm pretty sure you've applied those lessons to your personal life.
I've tried.
Professional life,
I've never been.
outside of
I'm
gymnastics.
far from perfect, but I've tried, and I'm grateful for the experience that taught me to be diligent when you have setbacks, and I've had plenty.
Good. Let's talk about Australia for a minute.
Joyfully.
Just as you reflect on that glorious 3 years, probably an exhausting 3 years
I
at the
aged
same
in
time.
dog years, I think, but it's okay.
Oh, yes. I truly believe that they should count a mission president service in dog years, for sure. But 2 or 3 lessons learned, the most important things, and what would you say to some young man or young woman who's wondering whether or not they should think about a mission?
For me personally, I think the most startling realization was how it's possible that a loving, kind Heavenly Father can love each of His children with complete love. And we think about our first entree into parenthood, right? That first child comes, and the love that we have for that new child is so remarkable and palpable. And then all of a sudden I find out my wife's going to have another baby, and I think, oh no, I have to divide my love. And because I'm going to have 2. And then the new baby comes, and all of a sudden my capacity to love has doubled, and then tripled with the 3rd and 4th and 5th and so on. And then I become a mission president. And the capacity that I had to love each of these young men and women, remarkable young men from 46 different countries, very diverse mission. And I counted 475 that I had contact with during the time serving them, and how much I love them to this day, and how I'm in touch with them still, and talk to them still, and worry about them still, and rejoice with them still. And I think, okay, I think I understand how my Father in heaven can love all of us. And I didn't really comprehend that. It's something that's just hard to wrap your mind around, especially a finite mind. And so that's, to me personally, is the most remarkable thing, to say, hey, you know what? I can share that Heavenly Father can and does love each of us perfectly, in spite of all the challenges we face. So that was probably it. I learned that my sacrifices in life have pale in comparison to many of the sacrifices of these remarkable young men and women that I had the privilege of leading. Some of them made just tremendous sacrifices to become a missionary, to think of the sacrifices they made in their families and such. And I had every level of cultural and socioeconomic difference in my mission. I had missionaries that lived off of the fish they caught each day, and the fruit they grew in their garden, and that was it. And then they come to a very developed nation of Australia, and their standard of living jumps quite a bit. But it also gave them a little feel for what could be when they finished their mission. I did something that I don't know if it was good. I felt good about it, so I'm not going to shy away from it. But I had, at any given time, I had 6 senior missionaries, usually 2 senior couples, and 2 senior sisters that were companions, and their only responsibility was preparing my missionaries for life after their mission. So they'd go to all their district meetings and such, and they'd pull those aside that needed extra training in English, those that were trying to figure out what's the next step when I come home. They've learned all this wonderful discipline on the mission, keeping a schedule and budgeting and all the things that we do that we don't think too much about on a mission. How can they apply that as soon as they get home? Prepare them for, if not college experience, a trade, carpentry, fishing, boating, because so many of them live on the islands. Skills that they can use that will help them bless their families' lives when they return. That was really important to me, because I was exposed to the realities of life that are so much different than what you and I probably grew up with here in North America.
Yeah, I'm sure you were an amazing president. Your missionaries loved you.
I love them to this day.
Yeah. I know how that is.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about heroes.
Okay.
We all grew up with heroes,
Yeah.
and maybe even still today we have some of them might.
I know I do.
Some of us might secretly have heroes, and maybe not so secretly have people that we really admire.
Sure.
And just tell us your view of heroes, maybe heroes that you had growing up, and what you would counsel young people today about making sure that the heroes that they have are the right kind of heroes.
As I speak to youth, I do it frequently. I say, so many of our young people, they know how to access lots of content on their phones, some good, some not so good.
Yep.
And they're so excited to see the next post on Instagram or on TikTok of someone that they like to follow, and they spend so much time doing that, they neglect to look at people around them that can have a much more powerful influence on their life for good. And so whenever I speak to youth, who are your heroes? And it's been remarkable, the answers I get. Most of them will say, my father, my mother, my brother. And I'm grateful to hear that. Sometimes they'll give you kind of some weird answers that you think, okay, let's try to raise the bar a little bit. But I don't, for time's sake, I'll just share with you that my coach had an amazing influence on my life. He taught me the value of being uncompromising in your efforts. He was a great coach, Makoto Sakamoto. His health is declining right now, and so I'm in touch with his family quite a bit, but I just love that man. My seminary teachers, all of them, one in particular, Larry Johnson, who's been an institute director down in Orange County, he's retired now, just made the scriptures come alive to me. And because of that, I made decisions that got me out of some sticky situations because of the lessons I learned from him. I'm eternally grateful to him. But I want to share mostly about my father. My father, John Vidmar, moved to Los Angeles from Latin America, from Chile, because his father worked in the mining industry. And his father wanted to provide a better education for his children. So he sent my grandmother and them, and he had to stay back and work up to Los Angeles, where they settled. And my father was raised in Los Angeles. Did gymnastics in high school. Used to hang out at Muscle Beach, down by the Santa Monica Pier,
Sure.
where Joe Gold of Gold's Gym got his start, where Jack LaLanne, who we all know, but young people don't know. That's where they got their start. My dad was not one of the famous ones, but he loved to do gymnastics. He washed dishes at a restaurant in downtown LA in the evenings that gave him bus money to go down to the beach in the summer and play around in the bars. Then he competed for his high school gymnastics team, but not with a lot of success. But he loved it. And I never saw my dad do gymnastics, because when he was 27, which was well before I was born, he contracted polio. And he was fine one day, and the next day he was paralyzed completely. He said he had a little bit of movement with his fingers as he's laying in the hospital bed, and he could move the fingers up to his face to scratch an itch, and then the arm would fall back, and then the muscles would cramp, and he'd shout out in pain. And all the nurses could do in polio was to go from bed to bed with buckets of hot water and towels and wring them out and put them on the cramping muscles of the polio sufferers, most of whom were children. When adults contracted polio, usually they died. And my dad was 27 years old. And he said there was one man older than him, and he passed away. And my dad was blessed that it left his body, but it also left its damage. And he lost the use of about 30 different muscles at random. A deltoid that didn't work, couldn't raise his left arm. Tricep that wouldn't work in the other arm, couldn't push with the right arm. But his left leg was the size of a number 2 pencil. My father had no muscle in his left leg except a tiny contraction in his quadricep, which with the help of a brace enabled him to walk with a big limp where he'd fling his leg forward and lock it into place. Had an arm that dangled and some neck muscles that were kind of unstable. I never thought of my father as someone that was physically challenged. That was just my dad. That's how he walked. I fully am aware that many people have suffered much more than my father physically, but this is the man that I grew up with. And I'll never forget when I was 10 years old, and I was on the couch. My mother was preparing dinner. At this time now, my father was living and working in downtown LA. He comes home into the front door. My mother gasps, and I hear, "John, what happened?" And I jump off the couch. I look at my dad. His glasses are cracked and broken. He's got dried blood all over his face. He says, tell you what happened. I'm walking across the street, and my good leg got stuck in a pothole on 6th and Figueroa or whatever in downtown LA. And I just couldn't get my arms up fast enough because I knew my bum leg wasn't going to support me. And I hit the pavement face first. And people got out of their cars. They picked me up. They dragged me across the street. I had a homeless man walk into my office. I wanted to give him some money, but he wouldn't take it because he told me he was a Boy Scout when he was a child. This was his good deed for the day. And then my dad started to laugh. And he said, I got to be more careful next time. And that moment in my dad's life has always stuck with me because I remember thinking, why doesn't Dad complain? And so we had a motto in the family, and it's not meant to be arrogant, but the motto is Vidmar's don't quit. You can't give up. And my dad, he never had to preach that. He just lived it. He never gave up. He was able to continue on with his career and raise a family of 6 kids. And, he hobbled around a lot. Was my bishop at one point. But I'll never forget that experience because my brother or sister would call him from college and they'd be having a bad day. And he'd say, I'm so sorry. You're having a bad day. And in his very warm and friendly mechanical engineering tone of voice say, I'm sorry. Well, you know what the family motto is, just do the best you can, then he'd hang up, and we hated that. But I'm grateful for it. And so I went into gymnastics with this coach, Makoto Sakamoto, who was a 2-time Olympian, 10-time USA champion. And my workouts were hard. And I wanted to complain, but I had to go home to that guy every night, John Vidmar. I knew I couldn't. And so he taught me to enjoy hard work, to do it with a smile, and know that, whatever it is, you'll get over it. Just keep working. And I'm grateful for that. I would not be an Olympic champion without my dad's.
Yeah. We could all use a little more of that, couldn't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Greg?
Yes. Peter, you've spoken a lot about the importance of goal setting plays a big role, right, in your success. What are some strategies that kind of helped you kind of set goals and kind of make incremental kind of achievements along your journey?
Yeah, my coach and I would sit down maybe 6 to 10 weeks before the next competition.
Yep.
We'd have about a 30-minute meeting with a calendar book. We didn't have technology like we do now. I'd have a little, executive planner that my brother got every year at Christmas from some client, and he'd hand it to me, and it had chalk dust all over it, and I'd write down and plan out my workout for the next 6 to 10 weeks, every day mapped out. Hard days, light days, hard weeks, light weeks, that periodization that's so important to be able to peak when you need to in competition.
Yep.
And I'd have it all mapped out. And then I would follow the plan. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that's okay. Because after the next competition, I'd sit down with my coach, say, hey, what went well, what didn't go well? Okay, so now how do we plan the next competition?
Yep.
And let's throw some things out that didn't work, add some new things that might work, see if it works. And the only way to know if it works is if you actually follow the plan. You can't just quit halfway through and say, oh, this isn't working. No, it might work. So I'd follow through that next plan. And that was a refining process. So the last, I'd say, 6 months to a year of my training in gymnastics, I didn't change anything. I knew what worked for me.
Yep. And
I had the perfect plan for me so that when I got to the Olympics, I felt that I'd done everything right for me. And I can enter that arena with confidence, knowing that I've done all I can do. And that gives confidence when you plan, prepare, perform, and then evaluate afterwards. And we did that like clockwork. It's like a circle. Plan, prepare, perform, evaluate, then plan again. And just do it over and over again until you refine what you're trying to perfect.
I love that.
So, yeah.
Thank you. A lot of our students are kind of figuring out their own career path.
Sure.
And kind of unsure about that. What advice would you give our students as they think about what career path to pursue?
Well, I would say, first and foremost, have faith, right? It's interesting, when my father passed away, he had post-polio syndrome. Everything was shutting down. And he was unconscious for about 36 hours before he passed away. And my niece came into his room, and we were all surrounding the bed, and she had her two of her teenage sons with her. And she said in a loud voice, Grandpa, it's Jenny. I got Stephen and Charlie here. Do you have any advice for them? And I was just about to say, Jenny, Dad can't hear you. All of a sudden, my dad turned his head, and he opened his eyes, looked at his 2 great-grandsons and said, always say your prayers. Never give up. And those are the last words my father spoke.
Wow.
And that summed up his life.
Yep.
You have to have faith that you can do the things that the Lord has in store for you.
Yep.
But along with that faith, it's going to take some effort. You're going to have to apply some effort.
Yep.
And so first and foremost, I tell your students, have faith that the Lord has a plan for them. One way to review that plan is to review their patriarchal blessing, and see what it is that the Lord wants for them and what's in store for them, and they'll align their lives maybe so that those blessings can be more likely to come true. But then know that life takes effort, it takes work, and sometimes that's the part of life that's not fun. And be consistent. Be consistent. I've learned in my sport, everybody works hard when they want to. Everybody works hard when they feel like it, when they're having a good day, when they get results. The best that I was able to observe, and I was really fortunate, I got to train daily with the best. They work hard when they don't feel like working hard. And those are the days that we really grow, is when you feel like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Yeah. And when you get through those days, then you feel like you've really conquered things. And I'm grateful for those days, much more so than when the days were going well. When the good, easy workout day, that's easy. Everybody works hard when they want to. But when you're tired and beat and you put forth effort, then you learn about what you're made of.
That perseverance really was a determining factor in your success.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Peter Vidmar, Tim Daggett, Mitch Gaylord, Bart Connor, Scott Johnson, Jim Hartung. Am I leaving anybody out?
No, that's the team.
Okay. That's the team.
Yep. remarkable team.
Share with us what you learned about teamwork and helping each other, and everybody had different skills, different abilities, perhaps different strengths. What did you learn about being a team member?
Here's the challenge of gymnastics. People don't think about this. Here's the challenge. While I'm competing with my teammates, I am simultaneously competing against them for the individual honors that follow. And so in that workout and training environment, I could hold back on some information. I could tell Tim Daggett, hey, Tim, I know what I think could help you on pommel horse, but if I help you, you might beat me at the Olympics. Should I keep that to myself, or do I help my teammate? And so those thoughts could come, but they never came with us, because we always thought, wait a second, if we all help each other out, if we all pitch in, if I help Tim and Tim helps me, we'll become better gymnasts, period. And that might be enough for us to win the team gold medal. And if we win the team gold medal, every one of us can say for the rest of our lives, I am an Olympic gold medalist, because they give a gold medal to every team member. Yep. And so we helped each other out in that gym. We were there to help and support each other. And so what does it do me if I don't share information with Tim, he doesn't share it with me, and I place 9th and he places 10th? But if I help him and he helps me, maybe he'll place first and I'll get second. That's okay. That's a medal. Right? And that's what happened. Tim and I, we both won Olympic medals on pommel horse. We were best friends. My oldest son, Timothy's named after Tim Daggett. His oldest son is named Peter. I know it's obnoxious, but we're good friends. He's a great guy.
Incredible.
And so I won the gold and Tim won the bronze on the pommel horse. And the differences was about this much, but we helped each other out. We helped each other to become Olympic medalists. And so in my sport, you have to go through that, hey, it's time to be really selfless. And then then we might all be able to reach our individual goals better. We're more likely to reach our individual goals if we help each other out as teammates. And I love those guys. We're still close, and we're just good friends.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. It's about time to wrap up this wonderful, wonderful conversation. And the name of this podcast is Thrive, and you epitomize that.
Wow,
somebody that has thrived in so many ways. But Peter, we'll give you the final word, and if you would just tell us about your feelings about the gospel and how all this wonderful journey you've had has at the end of the day helped you be a capable and trusted disciple of Jesus Christ.
Well, one of my favorite scriptures is Corinthians 2, verse 9, I think it is. For as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither hath entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared that love him. And so I think of when I was a young athlete, dreaming about what would it be like to be an Olympic champion, and wondering what would it like to be on that victory stand? What's it like? Could I ever have that feeling? And then it happened. And the first medal was the team medal, the most important one. You're looking at a photograph of my teammates up on the victory stand. Mm-hmm. It was amazing, and I'm not going to lie. It was, up to that point in my life, one of the greatest feelings I've ever had. But I know, and I have a testimony, that eternal life and exaltation is infinitely greater than that. And if that was worth working for, if that was worth trying to be worthy of through the atonement of my Savior, then I want to live the gospel. And I tell youth, Naaman had to dip 7 times for the leprosy to go away. 5 dips wouldn't do it. 6 dips wouldn't do it. So I tell young people, if you have a challenge, a question that you haven't found an answer for yet, keep dipping. Keep going to church. Keep praying. Keep reading your scriptures. Be a 7 dipper. I'm a 7 dipper. Yep. And I will be faithful for the rest of my life, because I know that as I keep dipping, answers always come and blessings always come. Maybe not in the way that I want, but eventually they come, and I've seen that happen over and over in my life. So be a 7 dipper, keep dipping, and the Lord will bless us. If not in this life, in the next life, He will. I have a testimony of that.
Oh, thanks so much. Again, Peter, thank you for coming, for being here, for inspiring us.
Oh, thank you.
And hopefully everyone who listens to this podcast and watches it will be inspired by a marvelous life, and someone that I think is probably our hero too.
Wow. Absolutely.
Well,
Peter,
you're my
thank you
heroes.
so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank
What
you,
an honor
Peter.
it's been. Thank you.
Joy unspeakable, faith unsinkable, love unstoppable.